Call to order the Public Works Committee, Thursday, April 25th, 2019. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir. Mr. Abshire?
Here.
Mr. Angelpont?
Here.
Mr. Barris?
Here.
Mr. Brain?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Farnham?
Here.
Mr. Guidry is out of town this evening. Mr. Guillory?
Present.
Mr. Landry?
Here.
Mr. Latour? Vice Chairman Mayo?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mrs. Trimmy?
Here.
President White?
Here.
And Chairman McMillan.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 3, consideration of
Move on
amending
3.
code ordinances to prohibit parking, shopping, or standing at all times outside posted school zone times on certain streets, lanes, avenues, etc., indicated portions thereof, School Street in its entirety in Ward 1. I got a motion by Mr. White and a second by Mr. Scott.
President White.
Is it under
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Barris? President White, thank you. Mr. Barris.
Yes, sir. This is interesting. I know that there's places around in my district where folks kind of get there a little early, and it sometimes presents a problem. Would we have to go through every school zone and do this, or is there just, I like this, is what I'm saying.
You're gonna have to open mine for me.
Like I said, would we have to go through each school zone and amend the ordinance again?
Mr. Barris, yes, you would, this is on a street by street. As you're aware, some of you, School Street goes up to the school. And so we have individuals that come up very early and they're parking on the road and they're blocking businesses, things of that sort. And so what this will do will limit their parking only during the time when the flashers are going on during that school zone when it's active. So if this is something that you think would be beneficial at another location, we can get with the school board and the sheriff's department to see if it's something that's enforceable. We had a meeting with the sheriff's department and the school board. They were all on board with this. And so that's why we're bringing it to you tonight.
And in this particular one, so there's a process in place where we look at, like you said, street by street, school area by school area.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barris. President White.
To further what Mr. Connor is also saying, by us doing this gives the authority to the law enforcement to actually write tickets to people that are parked in this during those times. Currently, the way the no parking is, they can actually sit in their cars and wait for their kids no matter what time. As long as they don't leave their car, it's really not considered parking. By us doing this, they're able to enforce it and write tickets to keep people from parking too soon. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
So, Mr. Connor, we met with the sheriff. They're gonna enforce this on this certain, because sometimes an ordinance might not be as enforceable as what we'd like it, but the sheriff has agreed. And if we did this to 10 more school zones, at what point do we now run into the school board? I think we're opening up something here that'll probably take a little bit more discussion. I'm okay with it. I was just making sure the sheriff is approved of where we're heading.
They were in the discussions, yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Farnham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to get this straight in my mind. It says stopping or standing. So outside of the flashing light times that the schools post, and sometimes those aren't right. They flash some days. Like this week, they've been flashing all week. Nobody's in school. So on these streets, whether it's on the school side of the street or the other side of the street, nobody can park or stand or walk or be on that. I'm trying to understand it.
It refers to the vehicle, stopping or standing. It's not, does not apply to individuals standing on the street. It has to do with the vehicle. It's the way it's defined.
If they park their car and get out of it at all, then they parked.
Correct.
Okay.
But if they're sitting in their vehicle, the sheriff's department found it difficult to write somebody a ticket. It's not really by definition parking. They're still sitting in the vehicle. So now, even if they are sitting in their vehicle with the definition of standing and stopping included, then they can write a ticket.
I'm not terribly familiar with exactly the layout of this street. Are there any houses on the other side of the street that somebody may have a need to park at?
Go to President White.
It's actually different businesses. It's just like a strip mall, and then further down is the old waterworks and residential's in behind the school, yes. And it's a 2-lane road. So this was a must that we get this done because they're parking all up 378, both directions. It's a nightmare, honestly.
I'm just trying to rationalize it all in my mind. So there's actually businesses on the other side of the road, and somebody pulls into the business and says that they're at the business, even though they're parked. How do they enforce
It's an
that?
actual parking lot in front of the strip mall, but they can't even get to the parking lot to park at that strip mall because it's a 2-lane road, and they're blocking the road.
All right, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any objection? That motion carries. Item 4, consideration
Move on 4.
of
Second.
approving a temporary servitude and right of use agreement for LA 3092 Lake Street at Ham Reed Road project. I have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second. I got a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. Brame. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, that motion carries. Item 5, consideration of approving expropriation
Move
for
on
Johnny
5.
Bro Road Extension Project. I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Gilroy on item 5. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, that motion carries. Item 6, consideration of approving the following items related to
Move
Nicholas
on
Bluff Road
6, all
Bridge
bullets.
replacement and realignment
Second.
project. I got a motion by Mr. Barris on item 6 and all bullets. Item A is, and a second by Mr. White, President White, excuse me. Item A is act to sell agreement. Item B is act to sell agreement along utility and drainage servitude and temporary construction servitude. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item 6 carries. Item 7, consideration approving cooperative endeavor
Move on
agreement
7.
between the police jury and Driftwood LNG LCC to provide for design and reconstruction and widening of Burton Shipyard Road from Highway 27 to Global Drive. I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by President White. Discussion? Mr. Barris.
Mr. Connor, I know it may be too early to ask this, but maybe just a ballpark scope of our involvement, I guess, in this agreement?
As far as any cost, the cost is 100% by Driftwood.
Okay.
And we are sort of like the new connector road. They're doing the plans, we review and make sure it's to our standard and it's adequate. So what this project will do, as you're aware, if those are familiar with the road, is very narrow, hardly any shoulder, so they're going to widen that to make sure that it can accommodate their construction traffic.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Farnum.
Thank you. Will Burton Shipyard Road remain a public road?
Yes, sir, up to Global Drive for sure. North of there, that's being discussed.
And where, I think it's Olson Road, where it tees into Burton Shipyard Road, will that remain open?
To my knowledge, yes, sir, it will.
I tell you that there's been several comments from that area about how that new road that was just opened is probably just going to turn into a raceway if that Olson Road remains open. All that construction traffic pouring out of there is going to split the business, and half of it's going to go one way and half of it's going to go the other way. So that road's just going to stack up just like Burton Shipyard Road is. So I've had several comments about that, and we talked about it a little bit on that opening day of the road, but like to see that thought out a little further. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barris.
I have spoken with the folks at Driftwood. My biggest fear, too, was that. I don't think that they're gonna have a lot of the parking on at that job site, but even still, I've spoken to them, and I've made it known several times that I don't want that to be, we didn't build that road for that project. And if it came to that point, I said, I'll be right there to call you out on it. And, you know, if they gotta sit there and man it every day when they let off work, you know, to keep their people from going. But, you know, right now, it's just speculation. I kinda like having two ways out of back there. I'd hate to just leave those folks in that Moss Lake area, you know, just one way in, one way out. This way, I mean, I'm gonna give the project the benefit of the doubt right now, because I really like the fact that there's two ways in and out there. And obviously, we'll just play it by ear, but I was very, very upfront with the folks from Driftwood as how I did not want that to happen, so, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I have a motion and a second on item 7. Any objection? Hearing none, that motion carries. Item 8, consideration approving cooperative endeavor agreement between the
Second.
governing authorities of Westlake Water District Number 2 of Ward 4, Mossville, and the city of Westlake for a portion of the cost related to purchase and installation of a new water well. Motion by Shelley Mayo, a second. President White? President White. Any discussion? Mr. Scott?
So, who's doing the water well? Is it, we're doing the water well? Is Westlake doing the
I'm
water
gonna
well?
ask Mr. Freeload to come to the mic.
Let's get
He
Mr.
can
Freeload to
explain
come and he'll explain what this project is. Name and address for the record.
Terry Freelow, Public Works Department. Mr. Scott, this project, we're actually purchasing water from Westlake, from Mossville. And so as the area is increasing and capacity increasing, we realized that we needed to probably help them with the benefit of getting a new well to provide water so we don't become stagnant in the district. The work has been completed already. It was already installed as online. We're just trying to go back and reimburse, kind of buying our capacity for future growth for Mossville.
So you're experiencing growth in the Mossville area due to commercial? Where are we
We'll mostly
experiencing
probably be
growth?
commercial and industrial.
And so we need more water, and I knew we were buying from Westlake already. So how are we
But
offsetting?
always, also, Westlake is also experiencing growth too.
Okay,
And so they're gonna take care of their citizens first. So I have to look out to Mossville, which is why we went into this agreement.
so we're splitting it 50-50. So-
Correct.
Okay, so it's still just a bigger area growing overall, it's not so.
Correct.
We're still buying water from them in a sense
Sir,
and
correct.
working together, all kumbaya.
Yes.
Gotcha, all right. Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Chairman McMillan?
Yes. Any other discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, that motion carries. Item 9, consideration of authorizing Paris Engineer to advertise for
Second.
following projects. Have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Barris on all bullets. Bullet A, Ham Reed Road Extension Project, Phase 1, and item B, Carlos Drive West Approach, widening of LA Highway 27 project in Mr. Barris' district. Have any discussion on that? Mr. Farnham?
Tim, this item B, I know we were working on interchange projects. Is this part of that same project? We were doing Carlos Drive, Walker Road, and Dave Dugas Road were 3 projects that we're working on.
No, sir, this is not. This is just to do some improvements on the west approach. As you're aware, there are some alignment issues there. This will correct that.
Okay.
And then provide additional turn lane and some storage and things of that
So,
sort.
so the project that's working on that whole interchange upgrade, this is just kind of
Interim.
get a little bit of that behind us.
Correct.
Okay. And that's not Highway 27 right there, right?
1256.
1256.
That's correct. You're right.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we need to correct that?
Probably need to.
Yeah.
All right, I'd like to correct that in the minutes to Highway 1256 on that project. Mr. Scott?
So I guess I'm just gonna make a statement. So this jury has decided that we do wanna build a Ham Reed Road extension without asking the city of Lake Charles to kitty up any money, knowing that they are gonna annex pretty quickly. So we're all okay with that. That's a statement, not a question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any other discussion on that? On Mr. Scott's statement? Mr. Landry?
The statement certainly sounded like a question, and yeah, I got a problem with that. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't, we've done enough of that. You build it and spend millions of dollars just to give it away? I mean, really, why build it if that's all that's gonna happen to the thing? Yeah, you need to work together. If it's the right thing to do, you know, and I'm assuming that it is. We've been talking about it for years. But you know, once you do that, you need to connect it all the way on the other end. We got a little pipeline problem there, but I'm sure it's nothing that Mr. Connor can't correct. And then it would go from Big Lake Road all the way to Highway 14 and Tom Abear.
Any other discussion?
Maybe they'll help us pay for that as well. We probably said enough.
I have a motion on item 9 in both bullets. Any objection? Hearing none, that motion carries. Item 10, consideration
Move on 10, all bullets.
authorizing Director of Public Works to advertise for the following projects. I got a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Mr. Gilrey on all bullets. I'll read the bullets. Item A, Canal Road, Boys Village Road Waterline Loop Project. Item B, Highway 397 and James Southern Road Waterline Loop and Replacement Project. And item C, Mallard Junction Water Treatment Plant Expansion Project. Item 10 has a motion to second all bullets. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, item 10 carries. Item 11, consideration of amending existing ordinances to regulate the speed limit on the following roads in Ward 2. East Todd Road, cancel the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit and establish a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit in its entirety. I need a motion on item 11.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Form, second by Mr. Abshire on item 11. Discussion?
Yep.
Mr. Barris.
Why in the world would we do this?
I'll give you an explanation on that.
I can ask the engineers that. I'd ask it if he was here. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'll give you an if I may.
Yes, Mr. Connor?
East Todd Road goes a mile south. It's a 2-lane roadway, and then it makes a turn for another half mile. Currently, the 1 mile going south off Highway 14 is posted for 25 miles per hour. Nobody's going to drive 25 miles an hour for 1 mile. And the Sheriff's Department brought it to our attention that he can't enforce that because it's a speed trap that basically is what we've created. So we've looked into it, and we did a speed study, and we've agreed to the 45 miles per hour. Based on the speed study, it should be posted higher than that, but we agreed to the 45 because the other leg of that is already 45 miles per hour, the half mile.
Huh.
So
So,
this was initiated by them, the Sheriff's Department.
think we've been down this road already. Johnny Jones. Johnny Jones Road in Corliss. We're gonna make so if we make the speed, so the thinking is if we put the speed limit at 45, they'll slow down. Is that
No, sir, that's not the,
how many times during that traffic study on Johnny Jones Road did we have a day? Did we have where it pegged at 99? A bunch. So if we put it to 45, we're not gonna get any more of that.
that's not the process nor the rationale.
Well,
The rationale is that, number one, if you want them to enforce it, it has to be a reasonable speed. You can't create a speed trap. And those are conversations we've had with the Sheriff's Department. Also, the speed limit that you want to create is what they call the 85th percentile, which is the speed that 85% of the vehicles are traveling or less. And that is what is considered a reasonable speed that most people will drive that is safe. There's always going to be a percentage of those that are going to drive higher than that, and those are the ones that need to be ticketed and where enforcement needs to come into play. But you do need to have a speed limit that is reasonable for the public that will drive, that are safe drivers, and that will not put them in violation of a posted speed limit. So when you go outside of that 85th percentile and you start getting, especially below the average speed, then you're creating what, by definition, a speed trap. And I can show you where we
Well,
have
I
changed
saw the
speed
data, I saw the data from Johnny Jones Road. I didn't see the data for this road. I just remember very, very, very few people were anywhere remotely. I think it's 45 on Johnny Jones Road. I mean, they weren't even remotely close to 45. And then, and I heard tell of them, well, we need to make it 55 just like Highway 27. No. But, okay.
Any other discussion? Any objection? That motion carries. Item 12, consideration of accepting Joe Spears Bridge Replacement Project as substantially complete. I have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Mr. Abshar. Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
Well, before that, are there any other matters for consideration? I have a motion by Mr. Landry to adjourn with second by Ms. Bale.
So how'd you get that? I want to know what this is about.
But is it on here?
It's right here on this sheet of paper.
Wait a minute, don't leave. Okay,
Help him, Michelle?
I'm good.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Leave that right there.
Shelley's got me under control. Thank you.
Who?
I'm a little smaller than they are. We ain't talking about
He's
that.
my wingman. He's my wingman.
We pull, where we pull?
Yeah, we're great.
We'll now call the order, to order the committee meeting. The purpose of today's committee meeting is to formulate an agenda for the regular meeting of the police jury, May the 2nd, 2019. The chair will entertain a motion to pull number 18.
Second.
A motion and a second to pull 18.
Oh, here I go. I just woke up, Francis.
Take appropriate action on the terms of the following members of the various boards and districts and further adopt resolutions approving appointments. A, Creole Nature Trail Scenic Byway District, Mrs.
So
Trimmy.
That Mr. Sam Wilkinson replaced Monty Hurley.
Second.
We have a motion to appoint Mr. Sam Wilkinson. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any opposition? That motion will carry. Calcasieu Parish Ward 7 Fire Protection
Move
District
to
Number
defer.
1 Civil Service Board, Mr.
Second.
Barris.
Item B. To next week,
Defer.
Till next week.
to next week's meeting.
On B?
Have a motion to defer till next meeting, you said? Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Collins seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Motion carries. Recreation District Number 1 of Ward 8.
Move to
Mr.
defer to the
Latour,
next
Mr.
meeting.
Charles
Second.
Bourgeois, motions.
Agenda committee meeting? or
The next regular meeting, we'll just do
Next
it.
week.
Next week?
Yeah. Leave it on.
Leave it on the agenda, okay.
Had a motion for Mr. Charles Bourgeois and a second.
Motion was to defer.
Defer for how long?
Till Shayla gets here at the next meeting, so he
Defer
can
till the
make his
next
own
meeting.
choice.
Is there any discussion?
Leave it on the agenda.
Yeah, I tried that.
Motion carries. That being said, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
adjourn.
We are now adjourned.
Bring up the drainage.